Hi, Mr. Bill. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our presentation. So today, our presentation is talking about the Suez Canal crisis, aka invasion of Egypt. So this event have a huge impact in the World War, and this presentation was made by me, Suzy, and Due. So first of all, I want to introduce to you guys a quote that kind of famous during this event. We shall defend it with our blood and strength, and we shall meet aggression and evil. So this quote was spoken by Egyptian leader Colonel Gamal Abdel Nasser when he addressed a crowd to stand up for the Suez and take it back from Britain. So this quote was spoken on July 26, 1956. So later on, 3 months later, on October 1956, the war is actually began, and this event happened in the Suez Canal, and this war included Egypt, which is the owner of the Suez Canal, with a little bit help from the Soviet Union, which is called USSR, against Britain, France, and Israel. So a little bit information about the Suez Canal and why are they fighting to get this canal. So the Suez Canal is the artificial sea level waterway in the Egypt. It connects Mediterranean Sea to the Red Sea. It opened on 1869. So since it is artificial, so it means that human made it out, not from the nature. So it has an open date. Moreover, it's cut off 5,000 miles voyage from Europe to Asia. It was built by the French diplomat Ferdinand de Lesseps, and the Suez Canal Company was owned by French and Austrian and Russian Egypt. So this is the picture of the Suez Canal from the satellites. Okay, next. The thing is, later on 1875, the ruler of Egypt, which name is Ismail Pasha, he sold 44% share in the Suez Canal to British government to solve his mountain of debt, so that the Britain now have the allowance to use the Suez Canal to delivery weapons and suppliers to their allies. So 80% ships going through the canal was British ships, and cannot stand that situation anymore. The Egyptian citizens, they will stand up for their land. And then British sent troops to Egypt to intervene the revolt, and they really did it. The revolt was calmed down, and then it was gone. And Egypt was gained freedom after World War II, so that they require for freedom for the Suez Canal too, and require Britain to get out of their land. But Britain was lost their many colonies, so they coming to a deal, which is Britain begging for Egypt to let Britain build a base in Suez Canal, and Egypt allowed them to do so, and they made a promise that the British bases will be kept until 1956. The citizen, when hearing the news that British gonna build the bases in their land, they be angry and they turning their back to their own king. And then the Cold War happened, and USSR and US tried to win France and limits other influence in Europe due to the Iron Wall that divided Europe in half, so that at least two US and USSR send their troops, suppliers, monies, ships to the Suez Canal and support the war just to win their friendships, make alliance, and expand their influence.
And what that was the Egyptian political who served as a third president of Egypt from 15 October by fundamentalist army officer on. He has a quote, which is, "The only matters that could take Egypt to war again is our topic today." So what happened? In 1956, in Egypt has just nationalized the Suez Canal. The canal had previously been owned by the Suez Canal Company, which had controlled mostly by French. And in Britain, the Suez was owned by the Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser, who wanted to use the process from the tool that can now generate for infrastructure project in Egypt. During the Cold War, and NASA, who wished to maintain good relationship with both USA and USSR. Only real aim was domaining it. Again, America was unhappy with NASA's hospitality to Soviet Union, and so along with Britain withdrew previously promised final access to Egypt as a result of NASA declared his intention to nationalize the Suez Canal to take up for the lost cause. The Suez Crisis provoked by an American and British decision not to finance Egypt's construction of the Aswan High Dam, as they had promised in the response to Egypt growing ties with the communism, Costa Rica, and the Soviet Union. Nasser reacted to the American and British decision to declaring the martial law in the Canal Zone was switching control with the Suez Canal Company, predicting that the toll collect from the ship passed through the canal would pay for the dam construction within 5 years. Britain and France feared that Nasser might close the canal and cut off the shipment of the petroleum flowing from the Persian Gulf to Western Europe. When the diplomatic effort to settle the crisis failed, Britain and France secretly prepared military action to regain control of the canal, and if possible, the disband Nasser. They found already ally in Israel, whose hostility toward Egypt and had been exacerbated by Nasser's blockade of the start of Tehran, the mouth of the Gulf of Aqaba, and numerous raids by Egyptian support commandos into Israel during 1955 to 1956. Next, for the timeline, we have on October 29, 1956, 10 Israel brigands invaded Egypt was advanced toward the canal, returning Egyptian force. Britain and French, following their plans, demanded that Israel and Egypt drop withdraw from the canal. They announced that they would advance to effort a ceasefire ordered by the United Nations. On October 5 and 6, this move was soon met to grow opposition at home and by US-sponsored resolution in the UN, made it into the counter-Soviet retreat of their intervention, which quickly put a stop in the Anglo-French action. On December 22, the UN evacuated British and French troops, and Israel force withdrew in March 1957. To be more specific, we have a small video for you guys to watch.
Egypt, the largest and most powerful Arab state, would be a valuable prize for either side. But which way would President Nasser turn? US President Dwight D. Eisenhower wanted to win over Nasser, but couldn't grant his request for a major arms deal. They'd most likely be used against Israel, which had many supporters in the US. The US and Britain instead offered to fund construction of the Aswan Dam, the centerpiece of Nasser's plan to modernize the Egyptian economy. Britain also agreed to remove its troops from the Suez Canal zone by June 1956. But then, border tension between Israel and her neighbors boiled over as the Israeli army attacked Egyptian-controlled Gaza, killing 38 Egyptian soldiers. The Gaza raid made Nasser determined to rapidly strengthen and modernize Egypt's army. Since the US wouldn't help, Nasser turned to the Soviet bloc.
Then, in the aftermath of the Suez crisis, British and French won the one seat of empires, found their influence as world power weakened as the United States and Soviet Union took a powerful role in the world affairs. British Prime Minister Anthony Eden resigned 2 months after withdrawing British troops. The crisis made Nasser a powerful hero in the growing Arab and Egyptian nationalist movements. Israel, while it did not gain the right to utilize the canal, was once again granted right to ship goods along the strait of Tehran. 10 years later, Egypt shut down the canal following by the Six-Day War in June 1967. For almost a decade, the Suez Canal became front line between the Israel and Egyptian armies. In 1975, a generous of peace, Egyptian President Anwar Sadat reopened the Suez Canal. Today, about 300 million tons of goods pass through this canal each year. And to adding more about the aftermath, we also have one more videos to show you guys.
Though the Suez crisis lasted less than a year, its effects were profound and long-lasting. Immediately, a United Nations peacekeeping force was sent in to supervise the ceasefire and to restore order. The Suez Canal was cleared and reopened. British Prime Minister Robert Anthony Eden quickly resigned. The Suez crisis strained the relationship between the United States and Britain. But as Cold War allies in NATO, the countries continued to work together. Both Britain and France, though, saw their influence as world powers diminished. The Suez crisis revealed who the real superpowers were in the world: the United States and the Soviet Union, a power structure that would stay in place for another 3 decades.
And we also prepared some Kahoot to you guys to play. If you guys are interested in, just click in the link. We will put it down below so you guys can play it along. And this is our sources. So that is the end of our presentation. Thank you all for listening. Bye.